Hi there, boys and girls. Welcome to Chapter 8, Lesson 8, Writing Fractions as Decimals. We've done a lot of work with decimals, so you know that in 5th grade, we deal with tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. And you know that those can all be written as decimals. Here's an example. This fraction, 14 over 100, can also be written as a decimal just by taking out the denominator of hundredths and then placing the decimal before the 1 to give us 14 hundredths. This also works with tenths and thousandths. Well, we can do it backwards too. If we know the decimal, we can make it into a fraction. Here's an example, 75 hundredths. So if you're not sure, remember there's two ways to do it. First of all, say it to yourself, 75 hundredths. That means the denominator will be 100. Or another trick that I learned is count the number of places after the decimal. Here I have 2 places. That means that my fraction, the denominator, will have 2 zeros. So that can also be written as 75 over 100. Now my decimal is a fraction. Here's another example, 22 hundredths. So I would write 22 over 100. And if I wanted to simplify or reduce that fraction to its lowest terms, now it will just behave like a typical fraction. So I would find a common factor for 22 and 100, and that factor would be 2, and I would divide 22 by 2, and you know whatever I do to the top, I have to do to the bottom, and that would give me 11 over 50 as my simplified fraction. So I started off with a decimal, and I ended up with a simplified fraction. Now, not every fraction can make a nice, neat, rounded decimal like that, but here are some typical ones. And if you let x, it's sort of algebra. I'm letting x be any number in the numerator, okay? Because if this works for any number in the numerator. If my denominator is a 4, and because I'm using x in the numerator, I'm using, instead of a multiplication symbol of x, I'm using the dot. Remember I told you that in 6th, 7th, and beyond, higher grades, if we're using x to represent a number, it's hard to use it to also represent multiplication, because then you have x's all over the place and people get confused. Well, I get confused. So if I wanted to turn this into a decimal, well, we know that a decimal needs a denominator of 10 or 100 or 1,000. So how many times does 4 go into 100? Well, it goes in 25 times. Think of money, 25 cents goes into $1. So 4 times 25 will give me my denominator of 100. Now, 4 doesn't go into 10 evenly, so I can't change it into tenths. I have to change it into hundredths. Then, of course, whatever we do to the bottom, we must do to the top. So we have to take whatever that number is that's represented by x and multiply it by 25. So my numerator will look like this. So this represents whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top, and that will give me 25x over 100. So 4 is a very friendly denominator. Another friendly denominator is 5. 5 times 20 will give me 100. Or 5 times 2 will give me 10. I'm going to do 10. So 5 times 2 gives me a denominator of 10. And whatever I do to the bottom, yeah, you know. That gives me 2 times the numerator over 10 will give me tenths. 10 works, 25 works, and of course 50 works, 50 times 2, and hundreds work as well. Now, to take a fraction and to take a decimal and make it into a fraction, why, that's even easier because the name tells you. So if I have 15 hundredths as my fraction, then I would just make that, take your numerator, 15, count your zeros, 1, 2, count your decimal places, 1, 2, kind of like a smile method, and now I have my decimal, 15 hundredths. As I said, not every fraction is decimal friendly. For example, if I have 2 over 7, 7 does not go evenly into 10 or 100 or even 1,000. So this would be difficult to make into a decimal. Now, it can be done with a calculator. If you take 2 and divide it by 7 on a calculator, you'll find some decimal that goes on with all kinds of numbers. That is the correct decimal, but it's not nice and even like our 15 hundredths is. So you can see that decimals are really special fractions. Fractions with a denominator of 10, 100, or 1,000. So today, to practice turning, well, you're going to practice both ways actually. Your assignment is on page 597. The first 12 questions, wow, it sounds like a lot. It's really not that bad, are all fractions given to you, and you have to make them into decimals. And really, all you have to remember is whatever you do to that denominator to get 10 or 100 or 1,000, you must do also to the numerator, and you're going to be multiplying. Then the last 3 questions are algebra questions, and they use letters to represent the numerator or the denominator, and they give you the decimal, and you have to make the fraction. So try that. If you have any questions, just raise your hand, get in touch with me, and I will help you. So that's it for today. Bye now.